Good evening and welcome to RFL. I'm Andrew Whitman. Richard French remains on assignment. He'll join us live from Charlotte in just a few minutes. This is, of course, night 3 of the Democratic National Convention. Last night, former President Bill Clinton made a strong case in favor of re-electing President Obama. Tonight, President Obama gets his own turn to make his own case. Let's go live to Charlotte, where ABC's Karen Travers joins us with the latest. Good evening, Karen.
Good evening. This is a big moment for President Obama. He's trying to reignite Democrats' enthusiasm and win over skeptical voters. It's a speech that will be all about the future. 4 years ago, President Obama offered an eager America hope and change. Tonight, he needs to convince increasingly skeptical voters that he can still deliver. The president's expected to highlight the promises he says he kept in his first term, but his critical task will be outlining what he'll do in a second term to keep the country moving.
I think folks, after watching the speech tonight, will have a very clear sense of where he thinks the country needs to go economically, the path we need to take.
It's a tough sell. Just 31% of Americans say the country's on the right track.
The voters still are unhappy with the job that President Obama has done, but aren't ready to settle on Governor Romney.
Tonight's scene will be a scaled-down version of what Democrats had planned. The speech was supposed to be delivered before 75,000 supporters at Charlotte's Bank of America football stadium. But the campaign said the risk of bad weather forced them to move it inside. Republicans said Democrats were just scared they wouldn't be able to fill the stadium. The change meant many unhappy North Carolina Democrats.
Right now, I'm just mad, because it's supposed to be the convention for the common man.
Today, the president held a conference call for the thousands who got shut out.
We can't let a little thunder and lightning get us down. We're going to have to roll with it.
Those who did score a seat inside the arena tonight will also hear from Vice President Biden. And a potentially emotional moment. Former Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords will deliver the Pledge of Allegiance. Because of this last-minute move inside this arena, there wasn't even enough time to set up the traditional balloon drop. But Democrats say, don't worry, they have a game plan to make this place look like a celebration. Reporting live from Charlotte, North Carolina, I'm Karen Travers for ABC News. Now back to you.
All right, Karen, thank you very much. A balloon game plan. Now, Democrats and President Obama and his re-election campaign have their work cut out for them. Today's RCP poll average shows the president and Mitt Romney in a dead heat, but Obama could get a bump from these next figures. Weekly applications for unemployment benefits down by 12,000 last week. We'll even get a jobs report tomorrow that could buoy the president even further. It could be an indication that hiring is strong and might lower the unemployment rate. And the stock markets all ended today at multi-year highs. The Dow and the S&P haven't been at this level since 07 and 08, respectively. Last time the NASDAQ was this high was November of 2000, when a man named Bill Clinton was still president. Could this welcome surprise help President Obama at the polls, and will it help him make his case today? And what more can we expect from President Obama tonight? For more on that, as well as more on how President Bill Clinton did last night, we head live to Charlotte. RNN's Richard French is in the convention hall for us tonight. Good evening, Rich.
How you doing, Andrew?
Doing well. Yourself?
I'm doing all right. The final day of the convention, as you said, wrapping things up behind me. Congressman John Lewis from Georgia, and one of the civil rights giants in this country, taking people back a little bit. The first time that he was in North Carolina, 1961, as one of the Freedom Riders. So you get a lot of conventions, as you know, Andrew, from when you were in Tampa. You get history lessons, but you also get a look to where we are and a look to where we're going next. And as you mentioned last night, Bill Clinton, he gave both the brief history lesson about the years that he was president, the intervening years, and the America that President Obama inherited and what he's had to deal with over the last 4 years. He also did a little bit of fact-checking, if you will, from some of the language you heard in Tampa that you covered, Andrew, and also what the reality of the president's plan for Bill Clinton both has been and will be going forward. You also mentioned a bump. Expectations out of this could be 2, could be 3 points, it could be negligible. We're going to find out. But the Democrats feel, at least through the first 2 days, that they've stayed on message. They've reached out to specific niche audiences, whether it be female, minority groups, especially Latinos, and also the middle-class voters out there. And that's really been a target last night, and we expect tonight. Earlier today, I sat down with Jonathan Karl, senior White House correspondent for ABC, about what we heard last night and what we can expect to hear this evening. Universally, it seems, the president hit it out of the park last night. Does the campaign feel the same way?
They're thrilled with Bill Clinton last night because there was always the risk that he would go off message. I mean, he's not always on message. And the fact that he ad-libbed a lot, the speech went longer than they expected. I mean, it's kind of interesting to look at the annotated version. This was the speech as written and this is as delivered. So, yeah, it went long, but they were thrilled with that kind of enthusiastic, no-holds-barred endorsement of Barack Obama.
I just had this image of some of whether Axelrod or Pfeiffer getting a little verklempt when they went on the ad-lib version.
Every time he ad-libs, you're like, wait, where's he going?
One of the things that struck me in the convention was I thought that video of the family articulated, at least for this room and many of the audience, for the first time what Obamacare not held out the promise of, but actually did.
Right.
Did it dawn on some of the people here in the campaign that maybe they can't articulate this thing in the last 60-plus days?
I think one of the real frustrations for a lot of the rank-and-file Democrats is why hasn't there been a better sales job? They believe in what the president did on health care, and they're frustrated to see it, in their view, distorted. And I think that you hear a little bit of that from Bill Clinton as well. Like, let's try to come up with some facts, as I see them, and just try to in their view correct the popular perception. But this is not something you do in the last 2 months of a campaign. I think that the perceptions are pretty well locked in. It's on the whole still an unpopular law. And is more of an albatross for the president than a strength. Now, he's got a campaign on it. It's his thing. It's the biggest legislative achievement of his presidency. So he's got to try to convince, try to move the numbers a little bit. But it's pretty locked in.
What's clear in every convention, but the identity politics of this. So Monday night, we had women and Latinos that were serviced. Last night, the president, he went obviously after the middle-class voter here. But when you look at the numbers of that demographic, of the white middle-class voter, and you think of the party, this was the party of the GI Bill. I mean, this was the party, this the Union Party, et cetera. Does the president just acknowledge, hey, if I keep this thing to in the mid-50s for Romney, I'll get by here? Or do they really think if he articulates the two different visions that he's got a better product to sell and he still can?
Well, Rich, you make a really good point because we hear so much about the gender gap and it's about, Republicans losing women. But it's astounding how, middle-class, middle-aged white males have fled from the president, and that's troubling when you want to win in Michigan, and you want to win in Ohio, and you want to win in Pennsylvania. Now, all three of those states actually look pretty good for Obama right now. But I think that Biden's a big part of that. Of course, we're going to hear from Biden tonight as well. And I think Bill Clinton's a big part of that. Bill Clinton is somebody who is. Have you seen Clinton's approval numbers now? I mean, it's astounding.
And it's amazing. Among women, they're even higher than the general population. Who would have thought that? For me, one of the things people have said, and I love the source who had the line, but it was a good one, that Denver was about promise, and tonight in Charlotte's going to be about patience.
That's good.
It is good. And what I thought was, how does he communicate that without sounding defensive?
Right. Another way I heard that was, this is not about rapture. This is about getting the job done. And he has to. I thought Bill Clinton provided a little bit of a roadmap there, right? I mean, he talked about. I think one of the biggest pops he got in terms of just the decibel level in this room is when he asked the question, "Are you better off than we were 4 years ago?" And the campaigns had a hard time answering that question, but this room didn't. Yes. Of course, a lot of work to be done. I mean, you can't ignore the fact the unemployment rate is where it is. You can't ignore the fact that the majority of this country thinks that we're going in the wrong direction. It's a very tough line for an incumbent president.
You've covered the White House. From those closest to the president, when they go off record with you, what's the thing that they hope he's learned over the last 4 years that he can communicate tonight, that he gets it and he's going to do it different if he gets the job for 4 more?
Well, one of the things is just real engagement with the political process. He's an interesting figure. He obviously relishes the campaign, and he's very good at it. Going out there, the big rallies, the big speeches, but the kind of art of politics, the push and pull, the dealing with leaders on the Hill. He's been much less engaged. I mean, you talk to Democratic leaders in the Congress who say they basically don't hear from him much at all. You know, one of the interesting anecdotes in this book that Woodward's got coming out is that when the Republicans won in 2010, the president wanted to call John Boehner to congratulate him. Nobody in the White House had his number. This is the Republican leader in the House. So I think that there's a little, you know, if you want to get something done, you have to engage in that process a little bit more. And you heard that even with the big successes he had, which were all party line successes, you know, health care, the stimulus bill. These were largely, the train was largely driven by others than the president, and they were, during the process you heard some frustration, not so much by the White House, but by leaders in his own party on the Hill.
Does he get a bump out of this?
I asked them that. They say that they don't even expect one. It's too close. The race is too close.
And another note, Andrew, in fact, the speaker who just finished up while the interview just ended was an Army Ranger who spoke about not just don't ask, don't tell, but also the treatment of soldiers when they come back, veteran care. And he also mentioned one other thing that I'm told you're going to hear quite a bit of tonight. They made reference that in Tampa, Mitt Romney didn't mention the troops once, specifically soldiers in harm's way in Afghanistan and Iraq. Expect to hear that theme quite a bit. I also expect that you'll hear the name of Osama bin Laden as well this evening, so that'll also play a prominent role tonight. Andrew?
Continuing on that theme, Rich, paint the picture behind you for us. What themes are the Democrats going to try to push tonight, and what might trip them up in getting that message across?
I'm told that in the president's remarks, he's going to try and walk a kind of a little bit of a rhetorical tightrope where he doesn't want to come off as too blaming or whiny, but he wants to acknowledge that the last 4 years have been difficult. America is not in a great place, but he'll make the argument it's better than the America he inherited right as the depth of the recession was kicking in. Moreover, he's also going to talk about the obstructionism that he inherited, but he will give specifics, and people close to the campaign say with a lot more detail than anything that we heard in Tampa. He will talk about foreign policy accomplishments. He'll talk, obviously, as I just mentioned, about Osama bin Laden. But I think it was a great line, and we mentioned it in that interview, where Denver was about, you know, possibility. What you're going to see tonight is about both practicality and also patience. It's a tough message to sell to an impatient public, but he's going to say just stay the course in effect here and things will get better.
Another potentially difficult night in store for President Barack Obama. Richard French live at the Democratic Convention in Charlotte. Richard, stand by. We'll come back to you later on in the broadcast. In the meantime, we're going to take a quick break. When we return, we continue to break down President Bill Clinton's speech last night, a powerhouse for most. Did he convince you to vote for another 4 years of the current Democratic president? Could his speech overshadow Barack Obama's big message tonight? That's next when RFL continues.
But last night was particularly inspirational because in this convention, as I've never seen it before, there is a true definition of what an American is.